Hello, and welcome to today's presentation entitled Sources of Career and Labor Market Information. This presentation is made available through the Miller Business Center here at the Middle Country Public Library. My name is Michael Apostoli, and I am one of the Career and Employment Counselors here at the Middle Country Public Library. This presentation will address your need for accurate information that will help you make good decisions regarding career and employment goals. We all make decisions each day about any number of things, some simple, some more complicated. Our decisions are connected to a need we have, and the decision-making process can frequently involve considering more than one choice. Making decisions about career and employment-related goals can seem overwhelming. The elements to consider when deciding the information you need to make a decision will be influenced by a number of factors specific to you. But all decisions will require that you have accurate information available to evaluate your choices and make the best decision for you. You might want to stop and think about your past and your present efforts at finding a job or selecting a career path. Think about what factors serve as the basis for your decision. Some examples might include, I need a job right away, I need the money, I have been doing the same job for 10 years and I want to change, I no longer feel that what I do is challenging. What career path should I pursue after high school? This slide identifies two key information resources that have traditionally been considered important for selecting career and employment objectives. The first is clarifying individual traits. And individual traits mean those aspects that are unique to you, and they include your interests, your aptitudes or abilities, or your personality, any financial and personal family needs or concerns that are present at the time of your decision making. The second area is knowledge of career and jobs in the labor market. It addresses the need to know what kinds of jobs are available in your geographic area, what industries are located where you live, what skills are in demand by the employers. Do I have the necessary skills to do the job? If you are working now, or you've ever worked in the past, it might be helpful to think about how you went about selecting your job or your career path. What information did you have available to you when you made your choice of career or vocational directions? Did anybody help you out with these? Maybe a high school guidance counselor, a career counselor at a library or the State Department of Labor? Maybe a neighbor talked to you once and said, there's an opening at my place of employment. They're looking for computer technicians. Prior to choosing a career path, have you ever asked yourself, what am I good at? What can I be good at? What type of company would I like to work for? What keeps me working here? Have you ever asked about or researched what a job or a career field requires before you spend time, energy, and money in pursuing it? Have you ever asked, who will hire me after I complete college or job training? Have you ever spent a lot of money on education and training only to find out that you are overqualified? The questions above are good questions to ask prior to initiating your plan to pursue your employment goals. This slide about occupational information highlights the need to make sure that you spend time thinking about yourself. Okay, and to think about jobs. Most of us think a lot about ourselves in terms of what we can and can't do, what we'd like to do, okay, but very few of us take the time to research occupations in greater detail to find out things that might make them more compatible or perhaps steer us in another direction. The first slide, one cannot choose what one does not know, I think summarizes the whole slide actually. And I think learning more about occupations is a prime focus of this presentation today. At this point, I just want to take a look at what you might want to call a traditional career decision-making process model. Okay, that identifies the steps you can take to help make a good career and employment decision. This model points to the steps necessary in a decision-making process that could actually apply to many decisions you need to make uh, in your over the course of your life about personal, or career-related things. So you may want to keep it in mind. But it begins with self-assessment, which we'll talk about in more detail shortly. Second step in identifying career and employment options and researching what's involved in preparing to be successful in these is a key element in the career selection process. Evaluating your options, eliminating those options that you thought might be possible, but then you figured that given time or money that you needed to allocate to pursuing those goals is not practical at this time, so you eliminate them. Taking action and trying options, reflecting and reevaluating. Well, taking action means you make your decision and you engage in the activities that will get you to the job or get the job itself. And then at some point, as we all do, we always reflect and reevaluate where we're at in our career, where we're at in our job, as we do reflect and reevaluate where we are in any number of aspects of life. At this point in the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about self-assessment, which was the first step in the career decision-making process that was reflected on several slides back. Self-assessment is important. The admonition to know thyself, which you may have heard, and is very important when it comes to making career decisions, or any decision that's of any significance for that matter, because if you didn't know yourself, the likelihood of you making a good decision would be decreased. Okay, so you need to be aware of what it is that is going to be asked of you in this decision-making process, and as far as self-assessment. The slide points out that a concept that is referred to as career fit. Is this a good career fit for me? Is this something that's going to be good for me? Career fit happens when a person pursues careers that utilize their skills, that are consistent with their interests, that fit their personality, and then are aligned with their values. We'll talk more about these next slide. Okay, let's take a closer look at the idea of self-assessment. And first, when we look at the areas related to self-assessment, the first one we talked about was skills. Things that I do, things I'm confident in. They can be an actual skill like a mechanical repair or word processing, working with people, listening to people who have problems. Those things can be considered skills. Things you might not be aware of that you could be good at are usually referred to as aptitudes. Aptitudes may be thought of as potentials or potential skills. Knowledge skills are usually skills required from either working in a particular job or career field over a period of time, or these usually involve or can involve some formal or semi-formal training or education as well. In terms of interests, the interests that we sometimes always want to look at are interests that are expressed interests. So what do you say you like to do? Or what do you think you'd like to do? Well, I think I'd like to work with my hands, or I think I'd like to work around people. Those kinds of things are good indicators of where to start your search. When you're making a career decision. Usually, the other way to look at interests is what grabs your attention. Okay, so what do you gravitate to? When you join social clubs or book clubs or your recreational programs and that you go to. Those things are all interests. Those things are all demonstrated interests, and those are important to keep in mind when you're doing your self-assessment. In terms of personality, some jobs require specific personality types. Okay, so you may ask yourself if you have good interpersonal skills, you get along with people. Those certainly are important for jobs where you're helping people, helping professions, and helping professions don't only involve therapy sessions or therapeutic medical things. They can also involve customer service, working with people either over the phone or via email somehow. Um, you want to look and say, well, if am I an introvert, somebody that keeps to themselves, or an extrovert, somebody who's a little bit more outgoing? That's a simplistic description between of the two, but some jobs would require that you have an extroverted personality. So, for example, if you're working in public relations where you do a lot of community organizing, you meet with people from the community, you need to have an outgoing personality. Doesn't mean you can't do it as somebody who's more of an introvert, but it might be a little bit more difficult. The values really are the answer the question, like, what do I want to get out of work? Okay, what do I want to get from my job? Well, sometimes it's a sense of accomplishment. I want to feel like at the end of the day that I did something. You want to maybe you're the type of person that might want a high level of reimbursement. Okay, or you might be somebody who wants to do something significant for other people. You want to help people. You want to see some kind of tangible outcome and change in people's lives. So those are the four elements that you want to keep in mind when you begin your search for a career or a job. You want to pay attention to those four areas and maybe, find out a little bit more about yourself in terms of each one of these. Okay. Again, meeting with a counselor can help with this. There are some interesting checklists, which we'll talk about later, that you could use to determine where you might fall in these four areas of self-assessment. Okay, at this point, we're going to look at resources that provide information related to career and labor market information. I want to take just a quick minute to review this list. A job, everybody needs a job. If you're at the point where you need a job, jobs are considered what we do to earn money. That's a job. A career is a series of jobs related over time. For example, in healthcare, you could start out working in a hospital. You could be a housekeeper. You could transfer to patient transportation, and then you can become a certified nursing assistant. That is the idea of a career. So you have a career in healthcare. It doesn't mean you start on one job and end on that, although it could. Okay, you can have a series of jobs related over a period of time. Sometimes it's important with this concept of career to think about building a career. Okay, taking a step. If you want to get into eventually to a nursing job or in a healthcare facility, maybe you get in at a different level. Okay, maybe you take a first job and you advance. A lot of the healthcare providers have ongoing training programs that you could take advantage of, or they'll help you with tuition. So it might move you closer to your goal over time. Occupation is the type of work. For example, you're a computer technician, you're a physical therapist, you're a custodian, whatever it happens to be. A career or an occupational cluster, one of the things that the labor market information systems that we'll be looking at, what they do is they put jobs together. So you could search by a specific job title, or you could say, well, I think I want something in healthcare rather than a specific healthcare job. And then it might be that you're looking at jobs that are more prolific, that are more available in terms of frequency, which we're going to do in a little bit. By the way, in this career occupation cluster, you see the website there for ONET Online. If you click on that, and you should be able to get to a really good database about jobs. It has a lot of interesting information. Industry cluster, again, think of the healthcare industry. Okay, industry clusters are groups of similar and related firms in a defined geographic area that share common markets, technologies, worker skills. So you see that, for example, you'll see in Long Island at a time there's a lot of electronics companies around. There are a lot of manufacturing companies. That's an industry cluster. Okay. A job outlook really is a forecasting tool that's used by the state and the federal government based on statistics that show changes over time in a particular occupation area. They'll answer questions like, will jobs as a physical therapist be available in 10 years if you're looking to be a physical therapist? What is the job outlook for any industry? Okay, it can be influenced by a number of factors, but one of the things it's important to know is this job available? Is it going to be around in 5 years, 10 years? Okay, is it fading out? Okay, remember when you're thinking about spending time, money, perhaps in training or education, you want to know that what you're getting into is going to be there, not just can I do it. Okay, the can I do it is the self-assessment piece. Will it be there? What's happening in that industry? That's the labor market information piece. Okay. And it is possible to have an interesting situation where you're an accountant, but you can be an accountant in let's say, stick with healthcare because healthcare is a big industry on Long Island. You could be an accountant in healthcare, but you could also be an accountant in manufacturing. Okay, so where you work, the industry you work, will also help to define what your job options are and your career path is. You may not like working as an accountant in healthcare, but you could still be an accountant in manufacturing. You might have to, learn a little bit more about the specifics of manufacturing, but you can do that. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about labor market information now. Labor market information can help people answer questions such as which industries employ people in a given occupation? Where will I be able to find a job geographically? Will I be able to find one here on Long Island if your plan is to stay on Long Island? Would you be considering moving from Long Island to another area? If that's true, if that's the case, rather, you want to know that that occupation is available where you're moving. Will there be opportunities in the field I'm considering after I complete required training or education? That's important. There are people who spend a great deal of time and money in getting education or training for jobs that don't exist or they're disappearing. And there may be some jobs so they could offer the training or the education, but the jobs are not necessarily going to be around for a long time. So you want to know which ones are going to be around for a long time, which ones are not. And also earnings. Earnings are very important to people. Some people say, I don't want to do it for the money, but we all need the money. We all need to support ourselves, to support our families. So that's certainly important. A labor market information it helps you answer these questions and many more questions. The article that's referenced on this screen is also very good about making suggestions on how to use this labor market information to help you explore careers and make a good career choice. There are a few labor market information websites that I would recommend to you. I already mentioned one in a previous footnote called onetonline.org. This one is called the careeronestop.org. And it is a very valuable, I think, and kind of a lot of fun, as I said before, to go through it and get the information you might need to help you make a really good career decision, or a better career decision, I should say. This particular page that you're looking at here is compiled, for New York State. The statistics on the largest rate of growth in New York State for occupations between 2016 and 2026. Now that's a projection, okay, and it's the actual employment numbers that were and the employment numbers that they're predicting. It also shows you. On this particular screen, it shows you what the percentage of change is, what the earnings are. The more dollar signs that you see there, the higher the earnings. And also for this brief screen here, it shows you what the typical educational background or preparation needs to be. So there are a number of factors that go into what makes these occupations rank where they rank. Number one, number two. So you look at the solar installers. Okay, the impact of new energy technologies in terms of solar panels and any kind of government initiative where government is sponsoring initiatives to conserve energy, okay, environmental conservation, to have cleaner air, cleaner energy sources. That's what's driving this photovoltaic installer occupation, okay, in part. If you look at that list, there's a couple of other interesting things on this. You can look at healthcare as an industry. See, there's a few healthcare industry occupations on this list. One is home health aides. Home health aides are increasing because they help to keep people out of hospitals, keep them out of nursing homes. You help them to maintain independence and reduce costs of care. It's important. A lot of the occupations, a lot of the labor market is driven by government incentives or government direction. Another area that is on there is a physician's assistant. There are physician shortages in certain parts of the state and across the country. There is an initiative to expand healthcare service availability to make it easier for people to see qualified medical personnel, and they are less expensive overall than medical doctors. So you could use this list to look at occupations. If you're considering an occupation, you can find out where it is in terms of the list of largest rate of growth occupations in New York State. If it's on your list, this only shows the top 10, but there are more. You can select in the database how many occupations you want to look at. All right. But if you look at it, it provides you with information about the occupation, about what's involved, what the earnings are, what the typical educational or training program is for you to, enter that occupation. This next chart is similar in that it presents information about the fastest growing careers in New York requiring an associate's degree. See, most people think that anything might involve any job might involve 4 years of college. Not always. This one is particularly geared towards 2 years of college. So if you're thinking about going to college as part of your career preparation planning, and you're thinking that you can't afford 4 years of college, right? So you might want to look at 2 years of college. If you look at 2 years of college, what kinds of occupations are out there that will allow you to pursue employment with a 2-year degree. Okay, so before you settle in at college, you might want to take a look at a list like this and consider these. Now, these, if you look at them, it looks like they're all healthcare or medical related jobs, except for the bottom three. Okay, these I think are the top 10. But if you look at it, you can expand this list. You can look at the earnings. You could click on any of those titles and get additional information about that occupation. Okay, so in one table, you can go to multiple tables and look at each occupation based on different characteristics. This third table, again from the Career One Stop program, has information that is relating to the law. What kinds of occupations are most people employed in New York State? So what are the largest employment per occupation in New York State? All right. And if you look at the first one, it's retail sales. and retail salespersons. Okay, that makes sense if you think about the number of stores around well, on Long Island. The malls, the stores, the strip malls, the smaller shops. These are retail salespeople. So that is the number one occupation in terms of total employment. As of 2016, that was the last time they did this survey. They'll probably update it soon, but I think it would be pretty consistent. And if you look at secretaries, janitors, all buildings all buildings need to be cleaned, need to be maintained. Administrative assistants in offices that are around. People need good clerical support, good administrative support, and secretarial support. So this seems kind of logical, right? What is available in the communities as the largest occupational set in New York. This final table from Career One Stop is interesting. It is careers that have a declining employment. Okay, so you want to look to see when you're considering your occupation that you're going to pursue or get training or education in preparation to pursue. You want to make sure that it's available. All right, and one of the ways you do that is you go look it up and on a system like Career One Stop, and you find out what the projections are, what the earnings are, et cetera, whatever the information you want to or you need to make a good decision. What the other way you look at it is what occupations are declining. In the first one, it's installers, electronic equipment. You see parking attendants, parking enforcement attendants, etc. There are all reasons for these declines. They could be technological. They could be they're making better equipment than they used to. If you look at number 3, word processors and typists. In a lot of businesses now, everybody does their own word processing. In fact, if you're thinking of getting into any business at all, or any occupational area that is going to require you to produce anything on paper or to handle documents, you're going to have to know word processing. Right, so you should put on your list of things to do, take a course or a training course, doesn't have to be college, but a good training course, and become proficient at Microsoft Office, which includes word processing. So you may not be hired as a word processor, but you will be doing word processing. And that's what's happening. So the demands on employees to do more is very very obvious, and the upshot of that is that certain job titles are less, like word processor and only word processor. Okay, these things are disappearing from the economy. It's getting easier. The technology influence is making it easier for people to learn these things, and those things sort of drive these changes at times. I do want to say one thing in support of the Career One Stop website. Okay, again, this slide has the address, the web address. It's a great stop to go to. And they call it a one stop because it is a one stop. I think everything that you would need, if not most things that you would need in terms of the labor market information, are on this website. It also has some good resources to help you with even doing a brief self-assessment. If you've never undergone an assessment of those things we talked about earlier, interests, values, abilities, some of these programs, like the Career One Stop, has those built into it. And then based on those results, you can use those results to search the database and make better career decisions. So it can help you with a career exploration database. It has that, so you can go in and research an individual job, an individual career area. So if you wanted to know what's involved in physicians becoming a physician's assistant, what is it? What do they do? You can find that information there. If you were looking to, you decided that you wanted to be somebody who wanted to work with video, computer-based video programs. They can tell you, they have a skills training resource database that can tell you where you can find that training. All right. They also have information about state and local employment resources. They will tell you what jobs are around, what jobs are declining. Those, much like we looked at on those previous slides. Also, there are special portions of the website that deal with specific concerns of workers. So, for example, there's a portion of it dedicated to older workers and entry-level job seekers and career changers. So what they'll have is some recommendations for older workers, how they might able to sell or market, for example, work that they've done before, how they can switch careers. Are there training programs for people who are older workers that want to transition to a new career? Is there money available to help with that? Sometimes there is. So you need to kind of research this, and having it in one spot, like the Career One Stop, is an excellent resource. So I think that I would encourage you to go on that, play around with it. They also have a self-assessment portion of their website, and they will give you quick screenings in interest, values, and work personality. Interest, skills, work personality. So I would encourage you to look at that. Thank you. Well, finally, I just wanted to remind you that this presentation has been made available to you by the Middle Country Public Library Career and Information Office. The Career and Information Office is a one-stop shop for your career and employment needs, including developing goals, developing a resume, planning a job search strategy, talking about job interviewing skills, exploring college education options. So there's a number of things that services that are available to the public. I would encourage you to give us a call. We would look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to helping you in any way we can with developing and implementing a sound career or employment plan. Thank you very much.